Okay, good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday, and welcome to a 10-year anniversary training and bit of a mini celebration, but really something that's just going to take you behind the scenes in terms of a decade in business. I feel I've aged a lot more than that over the past 10 years. I wanted to kind of host this training and kind of take you a little bit behind the scenes and tell you a bit about the story and the journey in the hope that you will be able to take something from it and look at how you can set up your own business or look at some shifts or look at just some things that you can do so that you can continue to progress in your life and in your business, even when it feels really challenging, even when you feel like you want to give up, even when you're at a rock bottom moment, because trust me, I've been through all of them. So we're going to go for sort of 30 to 45 minutes today, hopefully. I like to overtalk. Please use the chat if you're here live. If you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. And I think let's dive into the conversation. So for those of you that don't know, the story started just over 10 years ago. Just make sure we're recording. The story started just over 10 years ago when I was actually working in hospitality. I had a job that I kind of fell into after university when I was trying to find my dream job, when I was trying to find the thing that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I had no idea what that was. So I was a manager in hospitality and I just kept applying for all of these jobs. I was applying for a job as a secretary. I was applying for a job as a sales representative. I was applying to do a master's degree. I was applying to do some accountancy qualifications. When I'm somebody that hates numbers, and that's definitely not my gig and my role at all. I was just applying for so many jobs in the hope that I would just find the thing that was my thing. I wanted to be a nutritionist, an equine nutritionist, because I'd loved that at uni. And I just kept applying for all of these things, wondering what my magic thing was going to be. And back in June 2015, I actually met a gentleman who was coming into my place of work quite regularly because he was setting up his own business and he didn't currently have an office. So he used to come into my place of work, have many lattes and muffins and all these good things. And he and I just got chatting one day, and I'm somebody that's very conversational and I really find people and their stories really interesting. And I remember saying to this guy, "What is it that you do?" And that's like $1 million question in itself. Like that question alone is so powerful and can actually open up many doors. And he replied saying he was setting up an equestrian lifestyle website. Firstly, I remember thinking, that sounds amazing. And secondly, I remember thinking, I don't even know what one of those is. And I kind of asked him a little bit more about it, and he explained how it's going to work and that there were going to be articles and product reviews and interviews with Olympic riders and brands. And I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. And I now know what a lifestyle website is. And I just remember offering to write him a blog. I've been horsey my whole life. My mum had my pony before she had me. And I did an equine business degree. There were so many things. And I was like, my ears just lit up. And I offered to write him a blog. And he said, yes, I could write a blog. I said, well, what shall I write about? He was like, anything you like. I had complete free reign. And my mind just went into overspin. I thought, right, as soon as I get home from this shitty day at work, I'm actually going to go and start writing this blog. And the rest of that day, I couldn't stop thinking about this business. And I couldn't stop thinking about what I wanted to write this blog on. And I remember the drive home from work. It was about 20 minutes from my place of work to my home. And normally that 20-minute drive was spent dreading the next day, was spent replaying the day in my mind, was spent replaying conversations that I'd have with my bosses and kind of how they made me feel. But that drive home was different. That drive home, there was optimism, there was excitement, there was enthusiasm, there was like this feeling within me. And it was on that drive home that I thought, I'm going to write about retraining racehorses because that was something that I'd done once, only once, but I loved it. I love that whole environment. I love everything about that industry. And I couldn't wait to get home. And I got home and I opened my laptop and I started typing. Now, I had some battered old Dell laptop that was about 10 years old at this point, and I opened it and it took ages to open. I was like, please don't let me down. I've got this article to write. Please, please, please just work. And I started writing and I wrote so much. I probably wrote more in that article than I did in some of my university pieces of coursework. Like, hands down, there was so much on there. I was like, how long should a blog be? First Google. And I then realized I needed to condense that blog. I slept on it and woke up the next day feeling really excited. And I was like, oh, I wonder if he's going to come into work today. And he did. And I said, look, I've started writing this article, but I want to get some case studies. And he was like, you're mad. Like I only said yesterday, yes, you can. You've already written a whole article. I was like, yeah, it's also way too long. And I just remember this feeling. Now, around this time, my employers tried to change my contract, and they basically said that I had to start an hour earlier every day. I had to work every weekend. The perk of that job was that I did no weekend work, and it was for no more money. And I just remember thinking, are you fucking kidding me? And I hated this job anyway. I didn't like the people I worked for. I didn't like the job. I wasn't appreciated. I was completely undervalued and underappreciated. And I just remember thinking, they're having a fucking laugh. Like, are you kidding me? For no more work, like no more money, not even a penny extra, nothing, no other perks, nothing. And I just remember thinking, they're shot away. They can't be real. And I said to them, and what happens if I don't sign this contract? And they said, you can leave. And I was like, I'll leave then. Thank you very much. Now, I had no savings. I had £200 in my bank account. I didn't have any plan. I had no idea of what I was going to do. It's a real fuck it moment, but I just thought, I can't stay here. This is my opportunity. Now, I knew nothing about the universe at the time. I knew nothing about random inspired moments or random actions that can happen. I knew nothing about manifestation. I knew nothing about any of this, about the universe having a greater plan. But I just thought, I just need to get out of here. I had no idea what I was going to do next. So that day, I was basically told I could work a 3-day handover. And I was like, okay, brilliant. I can get out of here as soon as possible. That night, I finished work at 5:30 and I texted this guy that I've been writing the blog for. I said, can I pop round? Because at this point, he'd literally just signed the place for the office that day. I said, can I pop to your new office? He was like, okay. I think he thought I was a bit crazy. And I went to this office and I said, I'm going to be unemployed in 3 days. And I think he thought I was joking because he'd literally just met me the day before. And I genuinely think he thought I'd lost the plot and I was joking. I was like, so I'm going to do this article for you, this blog. I'll finish it tonight. I'll get it over to you. But if you need any other work doing or any other blogs, just let me know. Now, for a bit of context, I had written probably 4 blogs in my life for the company that I worked for. So I did a bit of their social media, did a bit of their PR, did a bit of their advertising budget management, wrote a few blogs, sent a few emails. Like I'd done a bit of marketing, not much. And I then went home and finished that blog and I gave it to him the next day. And at this point, I'd quickly got together some case studies. I'd interviewed some riders. I put some of my own experience into this blog and I gave it to him. I emailed it to him the next day, then went to work. And I was like, right, this is day 1 of 3 that I have to do left at this place. And he then came in a couple of hours later and he said, that blog was brilliant. And I was kind of speechless. It's like, really? Like you actually really liked it? Kind of a bit shocked because I had no idea what to expect. And he was like, yeah, it's really, really good. He said, I'll pay you £150 for it. And I was like, sorry? I was speechless. And I was like, are you sure? Like I loved writing it. I mean, it took me probably 10 hours, 12 hours of writing, research, putting it all together. But I couldn't believe that he was willing to pay me that for an article that I'd written. And I then said to him, if you need any other blogs, just let me know because, losing my job in 2 days. He then asked me to come in for a meeting the next day. So I went into his new office and had this meeting with him. And he basically then just said, if you're wanting to write a few more blogs and articles for me, the option's there, the opportunity is there. So I was like, amazing, that would be great. He was like, leave it with me. I'll see what I can pull together. I'll get you some titles or some ideas and we can go from there. But if you've got any ideas, let me know. So off I go home. I then work that 3-day handover and I'm out of that place for good. And I'm like, thank fuck. Like, I never want to go back there again. Don't even want to go to the village again. And he then rang me on my first day of sitting at home being like, what do I do now? Like I just sat in this cottage on my own thinking, what do I do now? Like, this is mad. I've got no money, no savings, no nothing. And he rang me and he said, Tara. I said, yes. He said, do you fancy going to Hickstead? I was like, the Hickstead. So this is one of the biggest equestrian events in the world. Like the Olympic team go and compete there. They have massive, like the highest level competition in the world at this event. I'd only ever watched it on TV. I'd never been. It's like, what, me? go to Hickstead for you? He was like, yeah, I'll get you press accreditation so you don't have to pay to get in. You just need to drive yourself there. I'll pay your fuel. I'll pay you a day rate of £150. But just go and get me a lot of content. You know, I need blogs, I need articles, I need social media posts. You got free reign, do what you want. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. So I said yes, knowing I could figure it out later. And the 27th of June, 2015 was the day that I drove 150 miles from Gloucestershire to West Sussex to go and report at this event. And the drive there was just one of the best drives of my life. Now, I love driving. And I remember setting off at about 6 a.m. The sun was shining. I put the tunes on. I was in my car, cruising along the M4, loving life, thinking, this is incredible. Like, I'm getting paid to do this. What in the fuck? I couldn't believe it. And that whole day was like a dream come true. I can drive into that showground now and still feel the feelings and the excitement of that day. But I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what a press office was. I didn't know where the press office was. I didn't know how to be a journalist. I didn't know how to interview people. I didn't know what the etiquette was. But I just watched. I observed what was going on. I asked the car park attendant where the press office was, and he told me where to go. I went in and I asked what I do, you know, how it works. And I just observed. And I was willing to work it out as I went. I was willing to kind of just find my way. I must have looked like some shy little chicken, to be quite honest with you. But I was just like, just going to observe and see what happens and watch as I go. Now, throughout the day, I think I probably wrote about 8 articles, probably totaling about 20,000 words. And I kept sending them to him throughout the day. You know, the press office Wi-Fi was behaving mostly, and I kept sending him these articles. I also kept sending him little updates that I wanted him to put on his Facebook and his Twitter. And it was like I was sending him a picture and a little update of who had just won a class, or the fact that one of the leading equestrian riders in the world had just had some faults in a competition class. And he wasn't putting them on social media. And I was like, look, you need to be up to date and current with these things. We need to be reporting on what is going on at this event. And I kept telling him off for not putting these posts and these updates on. So at the end of the day, I said to him, look, if you want me to do a social media, just let me know. Again, I didn't really know how to manage social media, but I knew that it was something that this new business needed. And he said, okay, you can do it. Let me know what you want to charge me, and then you can do it. So I thought, what on earth do I charge him? So I plucked a number out of thin air of £50 per week. So I was like, I'm going to put in like probably 8 hours a week, you know, 7-8 hours a week. That'll be fine. And that was just a number that I plucked out of thin air. And it was a number that I felt like I could get behind. It was a number that I kind of just thought, this works. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and I was loving life, being on the road, working as a journalist, going to all these top events, doing his social media. The brand was starting to grow. The website was live. My articles were published. It was just incredible. And I just said to him, this is amazing. Just send me anywhere across the UK, anywhere you want me to go as a journalist. I'm happy to go for you. I was racking up miles in my car. I was racking up my invoices for him. It was just incredible. He then actually recommended me to one of his friends who actually lived in the same village as him. And she owned 2 shops. So she had one in a local village called local town called Tetbury, one in a local town called Cirencester. And I loved her shop already. You know, I had been in there, I'd been shopping in there, I'd bought gifts in there, I'd bought candles for my own home in there. Like, I knew this shop. And he recommended me to her. And suddenly I was doing her social media management. She then recommended me to her friend who had an interior design company. And suddenly I started doing his social media management. And he's still a client today. But suddenly there was just this snowball effect. And I was just willing to say yes to any client that kind of came my way, any kind of work that came my way, and was just willing to kind of just go all in. Now, I didn't have the experience, I didn't have training, I didn't have qualifications of being a journalist or doing social media management. And that's not to take away from the people that have. The people that have done degrees in journalism or the people that have done degrees in marketing. But it was me just kind of thinking, I'm just going to say yes, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm going to represent this business as well as I possibly can. Now, if we fast forward a couple of years, that role then quite naturally transitioned into more of a PR and marketing role. And I absolutely loved doing that. You know, when somebody was coming back to me saying, oh my gosh, you've just got me in this magazine, and I used to read this magazine when I was younger, and my business and my products are now in there, I was like, oh God, this is like the best thing ever. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. But in April 2017, it all kind of came crashing down. And I lost 2 clients on one day because both of them had gone bust and decided to close the business. Like they couldn't run their business anymore. They both were done. And it was a Thursday morning. It was a particularly damp April. And I received both of these emails by 10 a.m. And my mind spiraled. I literally beat myself up internally and just felt like the biggest failure on the planet. I was like, how could I have let this happen? You know, I did both of I did the marketing for both of these companies. How could I have let this happen? How has this happened? You know, surely if I did a good job with their marketing, I should have been the one to drive their sales. I should have been the one to drive the website traffic. Surely it's my fault. And I felt so bad. And that spiral lasted a month and actually resulted in me developing stress-induced IBS, which was just unbearable and just horrendous to deal with. There then became a point at the beginning of May 2017 when I knew that I needed to find a way. It's like, I can't do this. I had a couple of clients pay me £50 a week. I was like, I've got rent to pay, I've got council tax to pay, I've got car on finance, I've got a Vodafone bill to pay. I was like, I don't know how to get myself out of this. And I remembered that I had met a person at a business networking event that I'd attended in Bristol, and she was a business coach. And I just thought, I wonder if she could help me. Like, I don't even know what a business coach is. I don't really know what they do, but maybe she could help me. So I reached out to her and I said, look, this is the situation. I don't know how to get another client. I'm in so much fear. I'm beating myself up so much. Like, I just feel like a failure. Like, I've got a couple of clients. I'm just stuck. Like, I really don't know how to progress. And she told me she charged £97 for a 1 hour session. And my heart sank. And I just thought, fuck, I haven't got £97. And I felt like such a fraud, such a failure. I was like, I don't know how to do this. But there was this little part of me that wanted this more than I wanted to go back and get a job. And that was enough to drive me on. And that little part of me thought, how can I manifest or how can I create £97? Again, at this point, I knew nothing about mindset, absolutely nothing. But I just remember thinking, how can I get £97? It wasn't a, I can't afford that thought. It was a, how can I thought? And that thought changed my life. That is what I now know to be a growth mindset. So I thought, how can I create £97? So I created this brand new offer and I put it on my social media, and it's £50 for a press release, which is just a ridiculous low sum. But I sold 2 and I was over the moon. I was like, right, I've got £97, I've got £3 change. Amazing. That's going to buy me fuck all, but we've got £3 change. So I messaged her back and I said, right, I've got the money, send me the invoice. I'll pay it right away while I've got that money before it vanishes, as money seems to vanish. I was like, I'm going to pay it right away. She's like, okay, brilliant. Between paying that invoice and actually going to her house to this coaching session, I think it was about a week. But every single day for that week, I thought of every single excuse under the sun as to why I was going to cancel. I thought maybe I could pretend my horse was ill. Maybe I could pretend that I had a puncture. Maybe I could pretend that I wasn't very well. Maybe I could just say, actually things are fine, all is good. And I was thinking of every single excuse under the sun to not go to the thing that I had paid because I felt like such a fraud and such a failure. I didn't feel good enough to have a coach. I was like, who the fuck has a coach? Like, I'm a horsey girl from the Cotswolds. We don't have business coaches. How ridiculous. And on the morning, I was still thinking of all of these excuses, every single excuse you could imagine. But I didn't have a puncture. My horse was fine. I was feeling fine. I was like, oh, I'm going to have to go, aren't I? So I drove the 45 minutes to a house and I knocked on the door feeling like this shadow of my former self. I didn't have any self-belief. I didn't feel confident. I didn't believe in myself anymore. I questioned every single thing that I was doing. And I was just like, I don't know how to get out of this. But I knocked on the door. She invited me into her home. And I will never forget the feeling driving home from that session. It was action-packed. We had mapped out my offers. We had looked at my social media. She had helped me create some content, so I knew what it was to put on social media to get more clients. And I drove home feeling optimistic. It was almost like that feeling on that first day as a journalist back in the June of 2015. And I drove home, got home, and I got immediately into action. I got straight into work. I was like, right, I've got a plan, I've got some action steps, I've got some things to do. Let's fucking go. And the April of that, the May then just suddenly started going up. and I had inquiries. And what was really interesting was that I had an inquiry for something that I hadn't promoted and I had no idea that I was ever going to offer. And in May 2017, somebody sent me a message. I can't remember if it was on Facebook or Twitter. You know, those were the only two I was on back then. And he said, can you teach me how to get these results that you share on social media? So I'd started showing some of the results that I was getting for the couple of social media management clients that I did have. And I was showing some of the sales that they had. I was showing some of the website traffic that they had from my social media. I was sharing some of the nice things that they had said about my work. That was all I was sharing. It was nothing big. It was nothing grand. But he saw this and thought, I want a bit of that. Can you teach me how to do that? Now, apart from that one session I had had with that coach, I didn't know what being a coach was. I'd never really heard of coaching or being a mentor or social media coaching, business coaching. Like, I just had one session with somebody that I met that was a very nice lady. But I thought, I can teach him how to do what I do. Like, I know what I do. I know how I've created the results that I've created with these people. And I said, yes. I was like, right, now I need to think of a price. Like, what do you charge for this? So I actually messaged her and said, somebody's asked me to teach them. I don't know what to charge. Can you help? She was like, well, let's come up with a number together. And that number was £75. And I thought, shit, someone's going to pay me £75 for 1 hour. My coach charges £97 for 1 hour. I was like, feels like a stretch, but I'm going to do it. And I said yes, told him it was that price. He was like, amazing. Can you come to my house to do it? And I was like, absolutely. I probably put 12 hours into that one session because I did so much prep. I looked through his current social media platforms. I looked at what he had done, what he could do to improve. I had a document that was probably 3 pages long of notes that I was going to take him through. And that session that I delivered, despite feeling nervous, despite rocking up thinking, shit, can I do this? That session helped him grow his Facebook massively, and his reach went from 300 to 30,000 literally in a couple of days or overnight. It was so quick because he just suddenly tweaked a few things, added in a few things, invited a few people, shared it in a couple of groups, and suddenly his reach exploded. And he was like, oh my God, you're like a magician. You're like, it's incredible. And that was the point that I fell in love with coaching, was that first session. But again, I still didn't know how to be a coach. I still didn't know how to price myself. I didn't know how it would work. So I created a little post and I put it on social media and said, just delivered this amazing coaching session for this client. They have a dog food and dog treat business. This is the result. This is what he said. Oh my gosh, I love this. Then I had another inquiry from a lady that had a converted barn that was an Airbnb. She lived in the next door village to me. And I was like, okay, this is great. And I just started growing the coaching side that way. But again, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was willing to just keep going no matter the fact that I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how to do this, but I was willing to just keep trying. I was willing to keep putting stuff on social media, even when it looked like there were days that nothing was happening, even when it looked like something wasn't going to go to plan, or even when somebody inquired and then didn't sign up. And I think the third person that inquired didn't sign up for it. And I suddenly thought, oh shit, have I exhausted my audience now? I've done 2, that's it. Nobody else in my audience. I mean, it was a small audience that I had at the time, but I was like, nobody else wants it. But there was this part of me that was like, but I loved doing that. I loved helping people have that clarity, that light bulb moment when they're like, oh my gosh, now I get it. And there was something within that kind of aligned to the PR and the marketing that I had done for the past couple of years, in terms of actually helping somebody grow their business, in terms of helping them have that light bulb moment, in terms of helping somebody know what to do. And that lit this fire within me that even to this day, I can still feel it now. And that was the point that I thought, I really, really want to do coaching. Now, I then kind of got to a point where I was just doing a lot of power hours. So my kind of journey as a coach started just doing one-off sessions for people. And then that person will come back to me and say, okay, that's brilliant. Can you also teach me this? Can you teach me how to get featured in magazines? Can you teach me how to send an email to my email people, or how to even start an email list? Can you teach me how to write a blog? And suddenly these questions were coming quite often. And I remember thinking about one of the questions that I'd received, well, maybe there must be some sort of program that I could put together, because I don't just want to just keep doing one-off power hours and saying, okay, well, we've just done a one-off power hour on Facebook. Would you like another one-off power hour on Twitter? And then blogging, and then email marketing. At the time, I was starting to manage people's websites and doing the little traffic light system in the back end of a website for the SEO. And I was like, okay, well, I could add that on. But it didn't make sense to me to keep doing lots of one-off power hours. So in 2018, I actually put together my first 8-week program. And it was very strategic. It was very marketing focused. It was all about social media, content, blogging, SEO, managing your website, email marketing. Did I say that one? PR, Pinterest. And it literally was a marketing program. And it got really amazing results. And I loved it. And the price changed over the next sort of year or two. And around that time, that was actually the time that I fell into the world of mindset completely by accident. And when I fell into the world of mindset completely by accident, that was such a pivotal moment for me, realizing actually there's a lot to do with our success when it comes to our mindset. When I then started actually looking into the world of mindset a little bit more, and actually started looking into the science of it, the why behind it, how it can actually help us, that was when I really then started committing to it. Because truthfully, I fell into it by accident. I signed up to work with a coach, and her whole 12-month program was kind of underpinned by mindset. And I just remember thinking, this is ridiculous. Like, I just want strategy. Just give me strategy. Tell me what to do. Tell me how to grow. Tell me, funnels, ads, all of the things. I was like, just, tell me what to do. And when I realized that this whole program was underpinned by mindset and I had started to look into it, I actually really started to see how important it was in terms of actually helping us build a business and continue to keep going. So when I then started to realize that, I was like, okay, let's look into this a little bit more. And throughout 2019 and throughout 2020, I continued, committing to mindset work, doing a morning routine, looking at the science behind our mindset, and just really starting to look into it. And what it kind of taught me, and I think this is absolutely imperative, is that your mindset is the thing that is going to help you keep going. Your mindset is the thing that is going to help you when the launch doesn't quite go to plan, when somebody copies you, when somebody bullies you, when a client leaves, when somebody asks for a refund, when the client that you've given your all to and who you thought was going to love your work doesn't, and suddenly they're vile or they ghost you. Having a strong, resilient mindset is the thing that's going to get you through all of that. And I just wish that I knew that back in 2017, when I had that month-long spiral, when I beat myself up, when my own thoughts created a physical symptom in my body of stomach pain through IBS. Like, that literally came about because my thoughts were in such a shitty rock bottom place, because I was beating myself up every single day, because I was feeling like a failure every single day. My thoughts literally created that in my body. So when I kind of had this realization, I was like, right, more people need to know about this. More people need to understand how their mindset can really, really help them. And that's when I started writing my book, Magnificent Mindset, back in August 2020, is when it started to kind of come together. And my mindset, I think, since then has just helped me in so many situations. It's really interesting having conversations with clients who have kind of done mindset with me for years and years and years now, when they kind of look at kind of how they view business, how they view challenges, how they view life now compared to pre-mindset. Because truthfully, I think your mindset is the thing that can either make a heaven out of hell or hell out of heaven. And I think that's a really, really important reminder. So when you think about what is really important when it comes to growing your business, I think, your mindset has to be something. Your mindset is one of the most important things. And beneath that, it's thinking about things like grit and resiliency and knowing that it's not always linear. I had a conversation with a client last week who she started the year absolutely fucking flying. Like, everything that she did went to plan. Everything that she touched was like gold. It was like magic. It was like everything was going well. And suddenly in April, May time, the things that were working suddenly stopped working. Her mindset dropped, her self-belief dropped, clients were leaving, the content wasn't working, the launches weren't happening. She was like, what the fuck? Like, I thought this was going to be an amazing year. She and I had a really honest conversation. And I said, I've been there myself when I've had a massive launch. The next launch, I was like, it's going to be bigger. It's going to be even better. And it wasn't, and it dropped. And I remember thinking, but I thought it was always going to go up and up and up and up. And business isn't like that. But she and I were able to have this conversation from both a mindset and a strategy perspective and say, right, what are we learning from this? Are we letting this determine how we feel? Are we letting this determine how we show up? Are we letting this determine, how convicted you are in what you do? Or do we see this, we see it for what it is, and we choose to rise? And that was such a big conversation for us. And, even to this day, we're still doing work every single day on her mindset. We're talking in WhatsApp every single day about what's going on. And I'm like, right, we are going to get through this. Like, you are going to rise again. But it's so easy when you are the life and the soul and the business owner, and you are the one that is responsible for everything, the sales, the content, the marketing, the doing the work, everything. It's so easy to let it mean something about us. Trust me, I've been there. Like, it's so easy to feel like the failure, to beat yourself up, to question everything and wonder if it's even worth it. But if you can then look at that and think, right, what is this teaching me right now? How do I get myself through this? How do I bring more grit and determination and resiliency and think, I'm going to keep going no matter what. I'm going to find a way no matter what. And then you can actually look at how you are going to show up in your business in that way and know that it's not always linear. I think there's an image that kind of does the rounds on social media about what it's like to be a business owner. And it's a roller coaster. It's going up and down and up and down and up and down. I'm like, ain't that the fucking truth? Like, it really is. But when you have that dip, when you have that low, when you have that challenge, if you can look at it logically, not emotionally, and you can actually look at it and think, right, what is this thing teaching me? And how can I rise from this? That's what's going to help you. But I think it's so easy, especially as women, we're very empathetic, we're very emotional, and that's just how we are. It's really easy to kind of look at that down and make it mean something about you. If you can look at that and think, right, what is this teaching me right now? And how can I rise? Then it's going to make the highs and the good times seem even better. I didn't know that back in April 2017. Trust me, I've had many rock bottoms since then as well. But in those moments, if we can remind ourselves that actually we get to decide in that moment that we're going to rise again. And then when you do rise again, it makes the good seem even much better. It makes you realize that it's worth it. And I truly believe that the down times make the good times feel even better, because you're like, I remember when it wasn't quite so good. And now we're flying again. Now it's amazing again. But as a business owner, it is your job to make sure that you are constantly doing this work, so that you are constantly looking at how you can keep growing and pivoting and innovating. Now, I could never in a billion years have planned the past 10 years. I could never, ever, ever in my life imagine going from being a journalist and social media manager to a business coach and a mindset coach that speaks on stages, that has a podcast, that has a book, like that does all of these things. I could never have planned it, ever. Like, if you had told me that 10 years ago, I'd be like, nice try. Like, don't be ridiculous. But one of the things that I really invite you to look at in your own business and look at in your own life is where you're missing key clues and opportunities. That person that says to you, oh, can you just do this? And you're like, no, I can't, because I haven't done it before, or I haven't got the experience. When somebody asks you to do something that actually is quite aligned to your business that you probably could do, but you say no through fear, or you say no because you haven't done it yet, or you say no because you haven't got the evidence that you can do it, or your mind suddenly goes into the scary, what if it goes wrong? What if I get it wrong? What if? Because truthfully, that first job as a journalist came about because I was willing to ask for something when I had no idea how to do it. Like, one of my greatest life mottos is, if you don't ask, you don't get. When somebody asked me to coach them and teach them social media, I was like, I'll say yes and figure it out. I'll give it a go. Like, I will give it my best shot. And I didn't know that it was going to go so well. I didn't know that I could do it. I didn't know, but I knew enough. There was this tiny, tiny, tiny inkling, a tiny part of me that thought, I think I can do this. And that was enough. It would have been really, really, really easy in that moment to think, I've never coached before. I don't know how to run a coaching session. I don't really know what to do. I don't know what to charge. I've only done social media management for less than 2 years. So, and what if I get it wrong? And what if he doesn't like it? And what if he says, it's crap? So I won't do it. It would have been so easy for me to do that in that moment, especially as I didn't know anything about mindset at the time. So where in your own journey are you missing really key opportunities that actually could open up your next door? that could actually take you on a slightly different path. I call these crunch point moments, a moment in time where you could have gone one of two ways, and whichever way you chose to go is the way that you chose to go, and it's got you to where you are today. But there will be many, many more of those on your own journey. But I want you to really think about this and think about where your thoughts and fears and what ifs are holding you back and keeping you stuck. You know, I love listening to a motivational video, and I've got a whole playlist of them on YouTube. And when I'm getting ready in the morning, I've got one on in the background, like always flooding my mind with like motivational speakers, with success, with like super wealthy, like super successful people. And I used to do this years ago, and I stopped for a while, and I've come back into it again now. And they're literally firing me up so much. Fucking love them. And one of them is really powerful, really impactful. And there's this American guy that speaks it. And it's quite a morbid kind of thought, but I think it's really impactful. And he says, the graveyard is the wealthiest place on the planet because that's where so many dreams are laid to rest. And I'm like, oh, God. Like that packs a punch. Like, I'm not even going to try and do his like deep, like American accent. I'm not even going to try it. But I'm like, it's so true because so many people have these great ideas and these great visions and these things that they really, really, really want to do. And these things that they don't stop thinking about. And these things that they would just love to do, but they don't take any action on them. And they don't take action on them because they think, well, what if it goes wrong? What if I mess it up? What if it doesn't quite go to plan? What if I try it and nobody buys? What if I put the thing on social media and nobody signs up? What if I say I'm going to run this event and nobody signs up? What if I put my prices up and then somebody leaves? What if, what if, what if? Look at where this is holding you back yourself. If there's something you can't stop thinking about, take action on it. And just say to yourself, I'm going to give it my best shot. Like, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to give it my best shot. And if it doesn't work out, you get to learn from it. If you can approach every action that you take in your business, every wish, every dream, every goal, and if you can approach every single one and say, I'm either going to learn from this or I'm going to win in this situation, that approach will change your life. So that with every launch, with every idea, with every offer, with every client, it's not that it's an absolute success or an absolute failure. It's not, that was amazing or that was shit. It's you either get the result that you want, and that's incredible, and then you win. And if you don't get the result you want, you learn from it. That approach will change your life. It will literally change your life. I remember in January 2020, I launched a group coaching program, and it was the second group coaching program that I had launched. The first one had 5 people in. I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I went to launch a second one. And I genuinely thought, because, you know, I'd had 5 people in the first one, the second one would just sell itself. I was like, it'll be fine. It'll be easy. You know, it'll sell itself. And I had 1 person sign up. And because I knew mindset, I was like, right, I'm going to give her an incredible experience. And I messaged her and said, look, Hayley, the situation is this. You're the only one that signed up for this group coaching program. It was a 12-week program. And I said to her, would you like 12 weeks of one-to-one instead for that price that you pay? And she was like, oh my God, are you kidding? She was like, this is the best news ever. I'm so lucky. Like, wow, I feel like I've won the lottery. And those 12 weeks together were phenomenal. Like, she had the best experience. And I remember reflecting on that launch. And I remember journaling and like writing it all out. And I was like, right, what went well? Okay, well, what went well is I had 1 dream client sign up, and she was not like the results she got. Her brand was lush. Like, I already like really liked this person. That 1 person was perfect. What else went well? I delivered amazing coaching. What else went well? She had an amazing experience, great results, great testimonial, great case study. What can I improve on next time? That is another question that I want you to write down, and I want you to really think about how this can change your life as well. Because I reflected on that launch and I said, what can I improve on next time? It wasn't a what went wrong, what was shit. It was, what can I improve on next time? And I realized that I hadn't quite been intentional enough. I hadn't been consistent enough. I was actually on holiday, sunning myself on a beach, just thinking this launch was just going to happen and sort itself out. So I knew that next time I needed to actually follow a proper launch strategy and a proper plan. I knew that I actually wasn't clear in my messaging in terms of, you know, who the program was for, how it's going to help them. I was just like, oh, I've got this group program. It's 12 weeks, there's 6 sessions, sign up. So I was able to look at that launch and say, what can I do better next time? That question The answers to that question then enabled me 6 months later in the June of that year to launch another group program, and 10 people signed up. What if I had seen that launch of January 2020 with my one person in a group program, and I'd looked at it and thought, well, it's a failure. You know, only one person signed up for a group. Clearly, group isn't my thing. Since then, I've run so many group programs, so many I can't even keep count of them. There have been hundreds of people, if not more, go through group programs. And all because I looked at that launch and I thought, how can I improve this next time? Business isn't always going to go as you want it to. Business isn't always going to be straightforward. The launch isn't always going to go as you want it to. But if you can learn from it each time and see this as an opportunity to keep getting better, to keep elevating, to keep fine-tuning things, then over time, your business will start to create what you want it to create. But we have to come at this as real business owners. We have to be able to look at things logically, not emotionally. And that's really fucking hard when you are the service provider. You are the person that creates your offers, or you're the person that designs the products or selects the products. You are the person responsible for your business. It's really, really, really hard to look at it logically, not emotionally. It's really hard to find the learnings when you're in the thick of it. But trust me, if you can start to look at your business journey in that way, and you can start to look at your content, your offers, your launches in that way, and you can look at it and say, okay, what did go well and what can I improve on next time? And you can start to look at things as you either win or you learn. Those two mindset shifts alone will absolutely change your experience as a business owner. But I want you to know this, like, it's not been the easiest 10 years in business. Good God, no. Like, I've wanted to burn it to the ground so many times, even so many times this year, I'll be very honest. But for me, the thing that keeps me going and that I keep coming back to is I've got such a big like mission with this. It's so much greater than just me and just making money. So when it feels really hard, remind yourself of why you do what you do. Remind yourself of what inspired you to start in the first place. Remind yourself of the clients that you do love, the clients that are amazing, the clients that just say, oh my God, this is so good. Like, you've brought my vision to life. The clients or the people that just live on your every word, they're not always the loudest, but they are always there. And just know that it does get to work out, but you have to have that resiliency. You have to be willing to keep pivoting, keep innovating, and keep looking at how you can keep moving forwards. I think a lot of business owners kind of feel like they've always got so many things going on and they've got so many ideas. And I just think that's the entrepreneur mindset, to embrace it. And here's the next 10 years. I'll try not to keep aging so much in that time. So are there any questions, or would any of you like to unmute? I'm happy to I'm going to stop recording now.